Now, last week, the 55 other Republicans running for president finally played the Mormon card on Mitt Romney. Protestants and Catholics getting all high and mighty on Mormons. It's like the common sense conservative version of when a child molester goes to prison and the murderers kill him. I'm a decent mainstream Christian. When I heard there were Mormons here, I nearly dropped my snake. It kind of reminds me of that famous picture of Sophia Loren looking at Jane Mansfield's tits. Oh, come on, you tramp. You're going to make us all look bad. And yet, having said that, I must say, Mormonism, God love it, it does take crazy to a whole new level. I mean, all religions are magic tricks. Mormonism is just a particularly bad, novelty shop level, intelligence insulting magic trick. This religion is so ridiculous, Tom Cruise would not join it, and Glenn Beck did. For example, there's one question I always like to ask prophets, and that is, what did you do before you got into the prophesizing business? And the answer with many of them, but most prominently Joseph Smith, is, I was a con man. And I don't say this as just part of my normal religious snark. I mean Joseph Smith was actually arrested for being the sort of sleazy grifter who, if he were alive today, would be spamming your inbox with ads for fake boner pills. Everywhere he went, he got in trouble for screwing people out of money. From New York to Ohio to Mississippi to Missouri and Illinois, Smith had to keep moving to avoid angry mobs and prosecuting attorneys. Or as rappers call it, touring. But, what? Mormonism is just the silly end of a larger problem, which is that religion itself is a con, and it's a con you pull on your own mind. It's not unfair to ask serious candidate Mitt Romney if he really believes that Joseph Smith received golden plates from an angel in 1823 and translated them into scripture that contains not a single person or place name that has been shown to ever exist. Are you too gullible to be president if you believe in a world full of characters who appear in the historical record exactly as often as leprechauns? An election is a job interview, and if you hire a plumber who tells you he can't fix your toilet, but he'll pray for the water to recede, the 6 inches of shit in your bedroom is what you deserve. The problem is that there is a religious test in this country. According to a recent poll, 7 in 10 say it's important to have a president with strong religious beliefs. The other 3 couldn't take the poll because it was Friday night and Yahweh wouldn't let them answer the phone. But fair is fair. So for myself and the other 15 to 20% of Americans who the majority call non-believers, but who I call rationalists, here is our religious test for office. If you believe in Judgment Day, I have to seriously question your judgment. If you believe you're in a long-term relationship with an all-powerful space daddy who will, after you die, party with your ghost forever, you can't have my vote even for Miss Hawaiian Tropic. I can't trust you at the levers of government because there's an electrical fire going on in your head. Maybe a president who didn't believe our soldiers were going to heaven might be a little less willing to get them killed. Candidate Mitt Romney, a Mormon, believes in spiritually blessed underwear that can protect him. He seemed like a nice man, and so do his sons, Wally and the Beeve. But I'm sorry, their religion is batshit. It's like Scientology without the celebrities. And He has every right to run for president while believing in magic underwear and believing that Jesus survived his own death and will return during an Osmonds concert in Branson. And I have every right to take that into consideration in the voting booth. And at the end of the day, is magic underwear really that much crazier than giant arcs or virgin births or talking bushes? You're either a rationalist or you're not. And the good news is a recent poll found 20% of adults under 30 say they are rationalists and have figured out that Santa Claus and Jesus are really the same guy. Now, 20% is hardly a majority, but it's a bigger minority than blacks, Jews, homosexuals, NRA members, teachers, or seniors. And it's certainly enough to stop being shy about expressing the opinion that we're not the crazy ones. Just because the vote is 4-1, it doesn't mean the minority is wrong. People who are against this war from the start were a minority. The majority used to believe the world was flat. But if you believe that today, you'd either be packed off to Bellevue or asked to co-host The View. And finally, new rule. Although America likes to think it's number one, we have to admit that we're behind the developing world in at least one thing. Their religious wackos are a lot more wacko than ours. You may applaud that. When South Park got threatened last week by Islamists incensed at their depiction of Muhammad, it served, or should serve, as a reminder to all of us that our culture isn't just different than one that makes death threats to cartoonists. It's better. Because when I make a joke about the Pope, he doesn't send one of the Swiss guards in their striped pantaloons to stick a pike in my ass. When I make a Jewish joke, rabbis make kvetch about it, but they don't pull out a scimitar and threaten an adult circumcision. And when I insult Scientology, the worst that happens is if... You know, it is true. When it comes to scary-ass religions, extremist Muslims are like Godzilla, and we're like, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I mean, Sarah Palin is an evil dingbat who thinks God opens doors, but she never tried to poison gas a girls' school, as the Taliban did this week in Afghanistan. You think about the craziest religious wackos we have here in America, the Mormons. I'm kidding, that's not a religion. No. Take the worst. The worst is the Christians who bring their God hates fag signs to soldiers' funerals. Can't get worse than that. Now multiply that by infinity and give it an army. That's the Taliban. Now, I've been known to make fun of Christians, but I have the perspective to know they're a lot more evolved than people who target girls for going to school. Why, the worst thing our priests ever do is smother children with kisses. But you know, even with the latest Catholic horror story, Muslims could teach Christians a clinic in how to be fucked up about sex. And that's because Muslims still take their religion too seriously, whereas we have the good sense to blow it off. Catholics, for example, don't follow the Pope in overwhelming numbers. They divorce, they have premarital sex, they masturbate. And unlike the Quran, no one here seriously considers following the Bible literally. Guys don't look over their fence on Sunday morning and see a neighbor mowing the lawn and think, working on Sunday? I really should kill him. Now, Christianity, of course, went through a period like that, where religion had too much influence. It was called the Dark Ages. For centuries, you either joined the church or were killed. But nowadays, when a Jehovah's Witness comes to the door, you turn the garden hose on him. But before I conclude, it should, in fairness, be noted that in speaking of Muslims, we realize that, of course, the vast majority are law-abiding, loving people who just want to be left alone to subjugate their women in peace. But I got to tell you, civilized people don't threaten each other. We sue each other. Threatening, that's some old-school desert shit. And I'm sorry, you can't bring that to the big city. I'm very glad that Obama is reaching out to the Muslim world, and I know Muslims living in America and Europe want their way of life to be assimilated more. But the Western world needs to make it clear, some things about our culture are not negotiable and can't change. And one of them is freedom of speech. Separation of church and state is another, not negotiable. For almost 2,000 years, Christians have been lawyering the Bible to try and figure out how love thy neighbor can mean hate thy neighbor, and how turn the other cheek can mean screw you, I'm buying space lasers. Martin Luther King gets to call himself a Christian because he actually practiced loving his enemies. And Gandhi was so fucking Christian he was Hindu. But if you rejoice in revenge, torture, and war, hey, that's why they call it the weekend, you cannot say you're a follower of the guy who explicitly said, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. The next line isn't, and if that doesn't work, send a titanium-fanged dog to rip his nuts off. Jesus lays on that hippie stuff pretty thick. He has lines like, do not repay evil with evil, and do not take revenge on someone who wrongs you. Really. It's in that book you hold up when you scream at gay people. And not to put too fine a point on it, but nonviolence was kind of Jesus's trademark. Kind of his big thing. To not follow that part of it is like joining Greenpeace and hating whales. I mean, you know, there's interpreting, and then there's just ignoring. It's just ignoring if you're for torture, as are more evangelical Christians than any other religion. You're supposed to look at that figure of Christ on the cross and think, how could a man suffer like that and forgive? Not, Romans are pussy, he still has his eyes. If you go to a baptism and hold the baby under until he starts talking, you're missing the message. Like, apparently, our president, who says he gets scripture on his BlackBerry first thing every morning, but who said on 60 Minutes that anyone who would question that bin Laden deserved assassination should, quote, have their head examined. Hey, Fox News, you missed a big headline. Obama thinks Jesus is nuts. To which I say hallelujah, because my favorite new government program is surprising violent religious zealots in the middle of the night and shooting them in the face. Sorry, Head Start, you're number 2 now. But you see, I can say that because I'm a non-Christian, just like most Christians. And Christians, I know, I'm sorry, I know you hate this and you want to square this circle, but you can't. I'm not even judging you. I'm just saying logically, if you ignore every single thing Jesus commanded you to do, you're not a Christian. You're just auditing. You're not Christ's followers. You're just fans. And if you believe the earth was given to you to kick ass on, while gloating? You're not really a Christian. You're a Texan. Rule the Pennsylvania teenager who faces up to 2 years in jail for disrespecting this statue of Jesus must show us he's really got balls and try it with a statue of Muhammad. Oh, don't fucking start with me, because it's going to get worse right now. Actually, that's a trick question, because there are no statues of Muhammad, because if you made one, there'd be a fatwa and you'd wind up dead. Now, folks, I know, as difficult as it is to face this issue, it is important for us as Americans to remember what we stand for. Of all the iconic American images in our history, there's no picture that makes my heart swell with patriotism quite like this one. Because this kid is not going to get killed for this. He's not even going to jail. Yes, there's some local dumbass DA trying to throw the book at him, but come on, he's a kid. He's just doing what kids do, making Jesus blow them. USA, USA, USA! It may not be in good taste. I certainly don't condone this type of behavior. Praying, I mean. But it speaks volumes about why liberal Western culture is not just different, it's better. President Obama keeps insisting that ISIS is not Islamic. Well, maybe they don't practice the Muslim faith the same way he does. But if vast numbers of Muslims across the world believe, and they do, that humans deserve to die for merely holding a different idea, or drawing a cartoon, or writing a book, or eloping with the wrong person, not only does the Muslim world have something in common with ISIS, it has too much in common with ISIS. There's so much talk. You can applaud, sure. There's so much talk about wiping out ISIS. You can't, not with bombs. You can only expose that something is a bad idea, like extended warranties. Cultures are different. It's okay to judge that rule of law isn't just different than theocracy. It's better. If you don't see that, you're either a religious fanatic or a masochist. But one thing you are certainly not is a liberal. To count yourself as a liberal, you have to stand up for liberal principles, free speech, separation of church and state. I'm interested, you're an atheist, so yeah. You think people who believe in God are deluded, and yet...
No, I don't. No, I don't. I get the appeal of religion. I don't believe in God, but I'm not, like, mad at him.
Wait a second.
I'm not this militant atheist. No,
if you're religion's all right. If you're an atheist, you must think people who believe in God are deluded.
No, I don't. I totally get the appeal. Well, Why
don't you have the courage of your convictions? You're an atheist.
I do. I'm an atheist. Standing up as an atheist.
Then why don't you think people who believe in God are deluded?
Because I've met incredibly smart people. I mean, 90%
who are
of the
deluded.
World. Okay. I don't agree. I don't agree.
But tell me why. How can you believe one thing and not the other?
Myriad reasons.
I've
read study after study. Okay, I just got a master's in religious studies. I read study after study in my course of examining this that proves psychologically religion's actually very good for you, both personally and for society.
Really?
Yes. I mean, religious people happen to be a little bit more optimistic. That helps them heal from diseases faster. I mean, there's all these weird,
it causes most wars, the Crusades, the Inquisition,
no, that's
9/11,
Bill,
honor kill.
Humans cause war.
That's right.
Humans cause war. We've been known to start wars. Everything from natural resources to land to religion. We start wars.
The justification for most of that is religion.
No, it's not.
Of course it is.
No, even the Palestinian-Israeli conflict right now, that's over land, that's over territory. It's cloaked in a religious kind of terminology.
What gets normal people to think it's okay to kill other people is religion. Very little else.
Or colonialism, or land power grab, or nativism.
Mostly religion.
Bill, I'm sorry.
Ethnic cleansing, honor rape.
Bill, Okay.
Yeah. These things are...
So you could point
Hitler,
out very
Pol Pot,
easily.
Mao, Stalin, not in the name of religion.
Were state religions. Of course they were.
Okay, communism is a state religion.
Absolutely. Okay. You never heard that?
I think we're talking about different things.
We're not.
But the problem
we're just talking about different labels.
We're talking about absolutism, ideology, extremism. Those are the courses of people's individual faith is not in that book.
Let me get to the premise of this book, though, because I would argue with that.
But understand, you're evidencing the zeal of a Baptist preacher in your atheism. You're just as dogmatic and intolerant as you accuse often the people on the religious side of being.
I'm not intolerant. You're accusing me of prejudice. I'm not prejudiced, because that would mean I'm prejudging. I'm judging.
If the modern atheist movement had a caught jester, a sharp-tongued, cynical and often uncomfortably honest commentator who isn't afraid to offend the king, the peasants, and especially the high priest man, it will be Bill Maher. For decades, Maher has been a constant, cranky and compelling voice on the cultural battlefield, and his opinions on religion have been one of the central pillars of his entire worldview. He isn't a scientist like Neil deGrasse Tyson, nor a philosopher like Sam Harris, though he shares the stage with them. Bill Maher is a satirist and a provocateur, and his impact on atheism is unique because he's less interested in converting believers than he is in giving non-believers a voice and a laugh in a world he sees as increasingly drowned out by pious nonsense. Now, to understand Maher's journey with religion, you have to go back to his early career on shows like Politically Incorrect, which was a show hosted by Bill Maher himself back in the 1990s. This was where the blueprint was drawn, man. He was always the skeptic, the guy rolling his eyes at dogmas of all kinds, whether it came from the left or the right. But just like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens, it wasn't until the cataclysmic event of 9/11 that Maher's skepticism towards faith crystallized onto a full-blown crusade. He saw the attacks not as a perversion of Islam, but as a logical, if extreme, outcome of faith itself, of believing things without evidence to the point of martyrdom. This was a dangerous and popular opinion at the time, and it cost him his show on NBC, man. But that moment seemed to free him as well. It cemented his belief that speaking the heretical truth was more important than being polite, a conviction that would define the rest of his career. This conviction would explode onto the screen in 2008 with his documentary film titled Religulous. The title itself, a mashup of religion and ridiculous, tells you everything you need to know about his approach in the documentary, man. This wasn't a dry academic dissection of theological arguments. This was Bill Maher with a microphone and a camera traveling the world to talk to believers, from truck stop evangelists to senators to the actors who play Jesus at theme parks. And if you watched the film, then you know that it was messy, confrontational, and often hilariously uncomfortable, man. Critics actually accused him of cherry-picking easy targets and being a bully. But for a vast audience of people who had quietly held their doubts, this documentary was a revelation. It was cathartic, in fact. It was someone finally saying out loud and on a big screen that, you see, this emperor, he has no clothes. That's because the film didn't just argue that religion was false. It argued with montages and mockery that it was absurd and also contradictory and often deeply silly. I'd actually say that it gave atheism a jolt of populist, anti-authoritarian energy. But that's just my opinion, man. Anyway, fast forward to today. In 2025, his weekly HBO show, Real Time with Bill Maher, has become the permanent platform for his mission, where night after night, he has used his opening monologue, a segment he calls New Roles, as well as his panel discussions to lampoon religious hypocrisy with the consistency of a metronome, man. And in the end, whether you like him or not, Bill Maher is a complex and often contradictory character. He is a liberal who infuriates the left, an atheist who sometimes alienates other atheists, and he can be brilliantly insightful and stubbornly obtuse, often in the same sentence, man. But at the end of the day, as I just said, his voice is undeniably important, man. Anyway, that's it for today. I really hope that you've enjoyed the video as much as I did putting it together, man. Please remember to leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video that I'll upload, I believe, on Wednesday, man. Peace. Stay safe.